Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show today, Ethics Talks. My name is Stuart, and our guest on the show today will be Lena. With Lena today, we're going to be discussing the topic of businesses and bank fees. So, how are you doing today, Lena?
I'm good, Stuart. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thank you. So, the first question I have with you to give me your opinion is with today's changing business environment, do you think there is a change in ethics at all?
Well, everything is rapidly changing, Stuart, around us, whether it is technologically, economically, or even socially and ethically as well. With different organizational structures that have been changing in the past 20 years, we are here today to present an example of the ethical, from an ethical aspect point of view, talking about the ethical, what's going on in the businesses and also the bank fees as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'd really like to get some knowledge on whether we think bank fees are ethical at all or what they'll be like in the future. So maybe you can provide me some more detail into what are some examples that you want to share with us about bank fees in general, as we know probably all our listeners really
Yeah,
despite bank fees
absolutely.
altogether.
Sure. Well, first thing I would like to talk about is the if you look at big businesses as a consumer, you will find startling changes in common sense business ethics. Banks are defending themselves from class action lawsuits due to unethical practices in charging absurd fees for everything from withdrawing your money to closing your accounts. Banks are perceived to be as being highly ethical due to fiduciary nature of the business. Yet they are being sued for brand companies having slowly changed the face of the business by hiding behind huge complex contracts that the consumer signs in order to obtain a simple service. And the contracts are fees that are never discussed and simply hidden in the legacy of the le- legalese of the contract. If a price is quoted as $40 per month, the end user is usually surprised to find in the bill an additional of $20 to $40 in additional fees.
Yes, I would totally agree with you. I get very upset when I get these additional fees that I didn't pay for. What else do you have for us?
Well, over the past 20 years, this creep of hidden fees has become expected by most of the end users as the price of doing business, only because of the lack of competition due to mergers and payouts, buyouts have these companies been able to retain their customers. There has been also a remarkable lack of backlash against these companies and their nefarious ways of doing business until only recently. Companies have increased the return on investment because of trickery rather than true business growth. While applying fees is in an expectable way to increase revenue for a company, the manner in which they do so is a circum, circumstance to say at least. A fee is a never discussed or clearly written in is hardly good business. If you own or plan to own a business, do the right thing and gain customers' loyalty and trust by making additional charges clear and open in all discussions and contracts. If you are hiding behind large contracts to hide fees and charges as a way of doing business, you may be legally in the right, but you will also be doing your customers wrong. In fact, as the banks can current asset, you may not even be legally in the right and end up in litigation for years that could possibly end your business.
Well, Lena, I would have to say that's some very important information you've passed on to our listeners, and I'm sure that most of them agree that these bank fees aren't necessarily totally ethical at this time, and hopefully there'll be a change in the future. Lastly, I was just wondering Do you think that our values and morals will change because of the technology we have today? Or do you think the traits will just remain the same forever from here on out?
Well, that's a good question to think about, Stuart. I would say that technology has changed the way we think about ethics, as there is no right or wrong in when it comes to the ethical matter. But the company can change its thinking about ethics based on the rapid change in technology that we face in as individuals and as business owners. Also, the morals and principles that we were raised on might be changing depending on the technological development of the company and also the region. So it also might be changing depending on the individual's attachment to culture. So it's not easy to change overall the morals and values, but we have to consider the fact that there are cultures that we have to respect and take with the consideration the laws and be able to address a proper ethics to the public. Overall, I would think everything is changing in the world, including ethics, but nothing remains the same except for the ground of our culture that every person is raised on.
Well, Lena, I would have to say I also feel it's harder to make those decisions because too much information, and also because there's no right or wrong about ethics at all. There's always the gray area in between ethics, which is the best decision depending on the type of the company or the organization where the issue is being addressed. Well, Lena, I would just like to thank you today for coming in and being on our show and providing our listeners with some detailed information. As well, I would like to thank all our listeners for tuning in to Ethics Talks, as they are the most important thing for our show. Thanks for coming in today, Lena, and hope you have a good day.
Thank you, Stuart.